Welcome to Rambling Rogues, a podcast for indie authors. I am Joe and
I'm Michael. Hello, everyone. It's the first episode of 2025.
Yes,
Can't believe it. We're here already. We are truly in the future.
Yeah, we are.
But we really do want to start making this a more regular thing this year. We've got quite some pretty big plans for the podcast this year. We were talking about them before. So we're really excited to get started and discussing some big topics, which hopefully you'll all find interesting. So just to kick off, what have you been up to in your sort of day-to-day recently?
What have I been up to?
What's happening in your
your
world?
A lot of things have been up. Been happening, hasn't it? So yeah, I've been doing a PGCE. Anyone doesn't know what that is? It's a teaching qualification. So I've been training to be a teacher. I'm also starting an art club in my local town. So that's quite exciting. I'm going to be starting that in about a week or two.
Yeah.
And I think that's about.
Yeah. Is it? I think that's pretty much your sort of
my main focus
things that I know of recently. You've started drawing again a bit, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been starting to do more portraiture using oil pastels and stuff like that. So I've been doing more creative stuff, and I've also started writing a new comic that been looking forward to. Actually starting to draw soon.
I can't remember if we mentioned this previously, but you've done it in a slightly different style, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm starting to do it in a different style to my previous work.
So stay tuned for that, I guess.
And Michael, what have you been up to?
And what have I been doing? I've been carrying on with my novel, and I feel like I've been saying that every episode. But that's pretty much. I mean,
well, you're on 15,000 words.
Yeah,
now,
I've made a real progress.
You've made a good progress.
So I'm pretty excited to hopefully get a first draft done by the end of the year. Outside of that, I've been doing a little bit of short story work for a project that you and I have been planning to do together. And that's mainly it for me. I mean, a novel doesn't give you a lot of time to work on. Well, unless you're extremely prolific, like some people, like my brother, for instance, who somehow able to do 10 things at once. But no, for me, a novel is pretty much that's the project. It takes up the time.
You've been working. I think you've been trying to get a few hundreds on a day.
I've been trying. I've done Again, I can't. Problem is, I can't exactly remember what I've said in previous episodes, but I've set myself a target, which I feel like has helped me actually get sat down and writing,
doing it every day, just working out a bit every day.
And I found by doing that, I've done more than I did before. So even though it's a small target, it's helped. So I'd suggest anyone do that. Does that? But again, I can't remember if we've talked about this before. So
we might have done.
So I don't want to go retread old ground too much. So something we're going to start doing every podcast, before we jump into the main topic, is that we're going to be giving a writing prompt, because it's something we've done in the group regularly. The Rogue Readers, if you're not in the group, just search for it on Facebook. There's probably a link in the description for this podcast as well. We do writing prompts every week, and we think it's a great way of getting those sort of creative juices flowing. Yeah,
nice challenge for people.
We get all sorts of people who submit things and give us these really interesting stories and ideas. So for the podcast, we're going to be giving a prompt for people. We'll be reading our favorite examples to the listeners on the next episode. So every episode will be giving a new prompt. So and actually quite relevant to this topic, because we want it to be no longer than a paragraph. So we want it to be short, and this is all about shorts, this episode.
Yeah, no, it is.
So try and think how you can tell a story in a concise way. So the prompt,
short and simple.
The prompt is this. It should begin with this sentence: "The light faded as I disappeared beneath the water." So let us know what you can do with that. Put some comments on the Facebook group, so we can read them. We'll share them in the next episode. So this podcast, we're talking about the TikTok ban, which is a huge topic, I guess, for the world in general at the moment, because it's one of the biggest social media platforms out there now. And it's something that a lot of authors are using to promote their work. I mean, it's easy access to a complete world of different people, different interests, and especially a younger audience. If you want to interact with younger people, younger readers, there's a few better places to go, I think, than TikTok. So, so we need to preface this whole thing by saying that the ban was supposed to happen, I think, last week at the time of recording. It has been delayed. Donald Trump has put out has delayed the ban for, I think, 75 days, something like that. Now, we're not going to be talking specifically about our views on, the national security implications of TikTok for the US or anything like that. That's not the angle we're going
No,
at, really.
we're from the
UK, apart from anything else.
Yeah, it doesn't affect us in that.
No, but also it's not, not something that we'd want to. We're not particularly no, and we're not particularly informed enough to talk about it from that aspect. We're not. But in terms of authors and how it will impact authors, I think that's that is something that we obviously
and even
invested
authors from European countries, it's going to affect.
We'll get to that.
Oh, okay, we'll get to that. There we go.
So, but before we get into sort of the author implications for authors and all that, and our own experiences as writers with TikTok, I think we should talk just in general about our own experiences just using the app itself, because I think that will impact how we view it and how we carry out the rest of this. So for me personally, I don't use TikTok. I'll be totally honest. It's just not. It's not been a platform that I've gravitated towards. I know a lot of people love watching the shorts on there and things like that, and I know there is a lot of interesting content on there, but it just hasn't been something that I've been drawn to.
However, you have watched shorts.
I have watched shorts,
and you have gotten glued to shorts before.
Yeah, on YouTube and things like that. I mean, they're sort of inescapable now. Aren't
they are,
everywhere.
yeah, they're everywhere.
On Facebook, they're on. So even if you don't use TikTok, you've probably been you've probably encountered shorts, and
you're still sort of sucked into that world.
As an author, it's sort of it's an interesting medium to think about, because we generally create things that are long form content. We create novels or novellas or long pieces of fiction or whatever, and a short is something short, and you've got to try and get an idea out. And
it's something also I feel a short it's not one of those tons of content that will last. Because like a YouTube video that always get money for people, but a short, it's sort of there, it does its thing for however long it does
for the moment, and then it's gone,
forgotten about.
That might be a part of it. But in terms of reaching an audience, I think there's no denying that shorts are quite powerful.
Shorts are really powerful. And in terms of marketing strategy, shorts are really important in terms of what they can do and how any creative person can grow your audience. Yeah,
and in terms of like marketing for ourselves, we have used TikTok for things like that. I mean, we used to do some things for Rogue Animal on TikTok. You put them out on there.
I used to do some things on there. And I also was like, what else do I do? Like, because I'm an artist myself. It's a great platform to put market my artwork on and other stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you can. It's all about trying to, like I was saying before, it's all about trying to figure out how you can get a message into this short little clip. So you've used it for your artwork, you've used it for things like that. And how have you found it as a marketing tool? Is it something that you found easy to use, or would you say it's something that you've got to get your head around?
It's easy to use. It's one of those things, right? It's easy to use. Anyone can use it, but it's hard to master and how to use it correctly. So figuring out who your target audience is and what type of videos will actually get popular, because you can put lots of content out there, but you could have none of it that will actually get any views. You need to figure out what's actually working, what other people are doing that is actually that's working. And you can do something similar. You can take inspiration from it.
Yeah. So it's all about looking at the data, isn't it? Which I guess is a thing that's quite important for overall marketing. What works, what doesn't, when you're putting something out there, and trying to adapt based on that information, which is something a lot of authors struggle with, I think.
Nice.
So throughout this podcast, we're going to be talking to a few different people about this topic.
Yeah.
Authors who actually do use TikTok to market themselves, and we'll see how. One, if this ban does go ahead, and there's no guarantee anymore that will happen. It may be that it doesn't happen, but we just don't know. So there's uncertainty there. But I think just the chance that it might happen means that people have to prepare. They have to think about what their plan B is. If that is your primary source of marketing at the moment, where are you going to go after
plan
that?
B?
Yeah. So we've got a few people on with us to talk about that. So the first person we'll be talking to is Kari Pohar, who we'll be talking to in a few moments. We'll be jumping into that interview. But as well as that, we'll be talking to various other people. And a quick aside at the end, we're also going to be doing a little section about sales. We just obviously had the Christmas period. Lots of authors like to put their books out there and market themselves. So we've asked a few people about who have run sales, what their experiences have, what they do differently next time, what went well, what didn't. So we'll be showing that at the end as well. All right. So shall we jump into the first interview?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay. So we're really pleased to be joined by paranormal fiction author Kari Pohar. Kari, thanks so much for joining us. Perhaps just to begin, you could give a little introduction about yourself and your background as a writer.
Sure. So I live in Illinois in the United States, and I have my master's in counseling. I'm not a counselor, but I have a master's. And in my day job, I plan programs and events for those that are over the age of 60 throughout our county. And I'm married. I've been married for this year will be 19 years, and I have 2 kids and a 19-year-old cat. And I'm a paranormal fiction author. So I have 9 short stories published in a variety of different anthologies, and my first novel, Chateau Merlot, came out June of 2022.
Oh. Right. Sounds like you've been very prolific as a writer. Have you got any particular projects in the works at the moment that you're working on?
Yeah. So I'm working on the sequel to Chateau Merlot. So Chateau Merlot is a vampire-owned apartment building where she houses her humans like a wine cellar. And so I'm writing the sequel. So we get to start looking at the next chapter, see what happens after the first one.
When we sent you a few weeks ago, we sent you some questions about the your any sales you'd ran around seasonal periods. And one of the answers you gave, you mentioned that one of the biggest platforms that you advertise yourself on is TikTok. And that sort of gave me the idea of, how big is the community on TikTok? And from the sense we've got from speaking to various people, the community seems to be quite big. So could you perhaps give us a sort of a sense of the community on there?
Sure. It's large. It is huge. That's what, when I went to publish, I self-published my book. And what I was hearing resoundingly through all kinds of different groups I was in was, you need to get on TikTok. That's where the writers are. That's where the readers are. And I went looking for readers, and I found some. And what I found was a community of authors. And that was amazing. I've been able to connect with so many authors, and there's nobody else like an author to commiserate with the different things that go into being an author. Oh gosh, I'm having to edit. Oh, I'm stuck on, I've got a block or something and I can't figure out what's next. Or you see all the different people that write differently. Or, oh my gosh, this is like, this person is talking about the first time that they get their box of books. And I'm like, I remember when I was there. And it's amazing to see everybody in their different stages of their journey. And you can root for them and you can cheer them on. And it's less about competition and more about community.
that's really sort of interesting, because there is something quite inherently lonely about being a writer, in a way. You do everything by yourself in your own little space, and you can sort of, there's a danger that in that process you can feel a bit sort of isolated from other authors. So would you say that's one of the biggest advantages of being on TikTok, is seeing other people like yourself creating things?
Yes, I've been able to connect with just so many different authors, and they will, sometimes they'll promote my book because of a video that I've made, or I will promote them because I've seen a video of their book. And it's just such a unique community of people that I would have not met otherwise.
So what are your experiences of advertising on TikTok?
So I've done a variety of different things. One right around late August, early September is really where I feel the need to push my book a little bit more, because we go into spooky season, and that's when people are really looking for like their vampire books. I mean, vampires can be year round, but let's be honest, there's definitely a draw right around Halloween. So I will do a lot more videos late August through like November, and just doing a lot of promoting on just videos that I'll create. And then if ever I do like through Amazon, because I've published through Kindle Unlimited, and I will post or make videos about the sales that I do for like for a free or reduced price for my ebook. And again, it goes back to that community. If another author sees that you are promoting your book and you've got a sale or something, they will help repost it. And so hopefully you're getting more people. I've also been very, very fortunate to have been invited by several other authors to do like a group sale. It's like kind of like a stuff your Kindle day. And a bunch of us got together and we all put our books on sale for the same price, and we were promoting all of our books. So, and that was not something that I sought out, but they included me because of some of my videos.
That sounds amazing. The fact that you've been able to interact with all these different people from different places, and do you find that having different authors sort of on your team, does that help you sort of reach new people and new audiences, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. Because the nice thing about readers is they don't just read one type of book. They don't just read one author. And a lot of times people, if they're looking for something, and let's say they like this one author, and they're like, oh, if they're friends with this author, I want to check them out too. I mean, that's what they do on Amazon, or any of the shopping sites. You scroll down beyond the product and it says, oh, this is what other people bought. And then you start seeing other books that people purchase that might be similar to yours, or people that you may know.
And would you say sort of one of your pieces of advice for people starting off on TikTok, although whether that's a good idea at the moment remains to be seen, given the potential ban, would you say that networking then is a very important thing to inform your sort of approach?
Absolutely. Really keeping in mind that other authors are not your competition, and to get readers, you want to be able to connect with the community as a whole, because you need other people to be able to share your information.
But with so many other authors on the platform, I guess standing out could also be a challenge. Do you have any tips for creating algorithm-friendly content?
So yeah, it can feel like you are a little fish in a giant bowl. I'm a little fish in a giant bowl, but I think that sometimes there's this focus on, oh, I got to get that viral video. Oh, I got to get all these people. I got to get all these followers. But even if you get a video that's quote unquote only 300 or 500 views, that's still 300 to 500 people that saw your content. So keeping that in perspective, because like I saw something that's like, let's say you were in person and let's say you had 300 people come to see something you're going to talk about. That would be amazing. So why is it just because it's a video on the internet that 300 views doesn't mean anything or doesn't count? It does. You're still reaching people, and you have to start at the beginning. You know, most authors are not going to jump onto a social media platform, regardless of which one it is, and instantly get 1 million followers. They have to build that community. They have to build that following. And speaking of viral videos, let's remember that not all videos that go viral are for the good reasons. There are quite a few controversies that authors have found themselves in, like where to find pirated books, talking about how traditionally published authors are better than indie authors, or using cultural or racial topics or situations to help promote their own book.
So you have to be careful as what topics you approach and what ground you tread, I guess. Of course, the idea of producing shorts isn't just on TikTok. It's on many other social media platforms now, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, pretty much. Do you think that their shorts are a useful medium for, I guess the answer will be yes, promoting your work?
I have not found any of the meta platforms to be particularly helpful. Most of my videos that I've created that I've put on any of those, it gets suppressed. It does not go out. So it's that's definitely, it's a different type of platform. They're also on most of those platforms, there aren't the filters, the amount of filters, the amount of sounds, the amount of quote unquote trends, because that's a lot of times like people will try these trends and you just don't necessarily see those as much on those other platforms. And those other platforms are usually a week or so behind TikTok. So if I'm on one of the meta platforms and I'm scrolling through the reels or the videos, most of them are things that I've already seen on TikTok, and it's a while ago. So, and with the ban, because it's not about data. It's not about our data, because if it were, it would be the same things that they're putting in place for TikTok would also apply to Meta. And it's not. They're not doing that. And they would also be banning Shen or Temu, but they're not. It's about silencing voices.
So just to go back to the idea of shorts being so prevalent, obviously you think that shorts are a valid, a successful route on TikTok, but clearly not so much elsewhere. Do you think that's down to the algorithm, and or is it some other reason? Would you say?
It could be the algorithm. Whatever magic TikTok has got going, they've got the special sauce. I feel that because of the way that it's formatted, you can easily get to that creator, because like a lot of people, to create this sense of suspense, they'll create multiple part videos, And so they'll show you one part and you're like, well, I need to know what happens next. I mean, there's whole communities that are talking that they've made up their own little movies. They've made up their own scenarios. And it's like little soap operas. And the amount of people that watch them, like my feed over the last week about Shauna and this birthday party. It was a 5-year-old's birthday party, and everybody was commenting about this particular made up birthday party drama. It just really feels like a community, and people are all talking about the same thing, where I don't necessarily get that feeling from the other platforms. However, I know over the past few weeks, there have been more social media platforms to start coming out. I know Tome, excuse me, Tome is one. I know Neptune is coming soon, and Blue Sky has really exploded, which is amazing. And I know that some of those are working to get short form video applications going. So I feel that there's going to be more short, like if TikTok does go away, I think that there is going to be something, hopefully, that will take over. But I just don't see how the meta platforms can theoretically keep up.
So in terms of creating shorts on TikTok, obviously it's quite different to creating other forms of advertising materials. Do you think that the concise nature of shorts poses a challenge for authors? I guess we're usually used to creating long form content like novels and things like that. So doing something in 15 seconds is a challenge for a lot of us. What would your advice be?
It can be. It certainly can be. However, I do think it's a really good practice in conciseness. Because there's a lot of times where you've written this big book and somebody will ask you, what's it about? And I'm like, I don't know. I've done some stuff. Where I think having to practice getting your point across in 15 seconds, 30 seconds, however many seconds you're doing, it's a really good way to help get you to make it more concise and really hone in on what your book is about and what you want to talk about in that moment. I know I had a series of videos that I did that, because in my book, I deal with blood types, and blood types are, depending on your blood type, it determines how valuable you are to vampires. And so the more rare the blood type, the more valuable you are to a vampire. And so I had a poster, and so I broke it down to what people would theoretically make if they lived in the chateau. And people just started commenting, well, what would my blood type be? How much is my blood type worth? And so I did response videos to every single one of those. And the series itself, each video had anywhere from 13,000 to 113,000 video views. So that was a huge increase to people that were seeing my videos, just for the amount of people that were commenting in the videos that I was creating on the fly. Like I didn't necessarily have a plan. Like I didn't know it was gonna go like that. So I just kept, that whole night, I just kept creating videos as more comments came in.
And do you find that you have to sort of react and on the fly, as it were, when you see these comments and this feedback and the stats?
Sometimes, depending on what it is. I haven't had any others go that crazy since, or before that. So, but really making sure that you're replying to comments, either liking them, replying to them, creating a response video. I like to do response videos when it's something that when the commenter is giving you something that you can really kind of jump on. But I don't necessarily think you have to always be on the fly. I think there are some very good content creators that really plan out what they're going to do. And there are a lot of content creators that they create content specifically for authors so that they can. There's several of them that I follow that they'll be like, well, this is how you do this to attract your readers. You should try this, or this is how you should plan this out. Unfortunately, outside of my day job, I am a pantser. So I kind of just throw myself into the creative process of making videos with usually very little planning ahead of time.
Is that your approach to writing as well?
It is. I don't know how to outline.
I have the exact same problem, so I can relate with that.
I sit down, I'm like, oh, what are my characters going to tell me today? What are we going to do today? I have no idea. I don't know. I did not, when I was writing Chateau Merlot, I did not know how it was going to end. And going into this book, I also don't know how it's going to end.
There's something quite exciting about that as well, though, isn't there? As you learn as you go along.
Yeah.
So obviously the TikTok ban has been delayed, but it still could go ahead. What have the reactions been that you've seen within the author community so far to the ban?
I think equal parts anger and sadness. Anger because, again, this isn't about our data. It's about control. It's about other platforms wanting the algorithm. They want whatever TikTok has. But also a lot of sadness over the loss of community. So many people joined TikTok during the pandemic. And when most of us were very, very isolated and alone, we found people that maybe had the same humor as us, or could maybe lighten the mood for just a few moments. Or we found things that we thought nobody else would know or remember. And all of a sudden, we got to develop this kind of relationship with all of these different people, because you would keep seeing their videos come up. And you're like, oh, I love their dancing, or oh, I really like what they're doing here. So, and there's so many different, like there's TikTok Shop, and there's so many different small businesses that have gotten their start there, that they can't, like, no other platform is set up to be able to support them the way that TikTok has. And that can be authors on being able to get their books out that are signed, and like book bundles and stuff, or they could be rock buckets, like mining buckets. There's so many different types of small businesses there. And the loss of TikTok it's loss of liveliness, like livelihood, being able to run whatever business that they're doing, and loss of community. I mean, as I said, like the community that I've helped create or help be a part of has been so much fun. And getting to know so many different authors has been just something that I've really enjoyed. And joining TikTok was probably one of my best decisions.
Yeah, it is an unfortunate situation, really. Have you sort of discussed with other authors where you might go next? Is there a sort of a consensus about other platforms, or?
No, there's not necessarily a general consensus. A lot of people, when the ban happened for about 12 hours, I was camping when that happened, and I was so sad. I was like, I can't even say goodbye, because I was going to be where there was not really going to be any internet. So I left on a Friday, and I made my last video, and I was just so incredibly sad. And then that Sunday I woke up and it was gone. But there was a lot of people that were posting where they were going. And I think it's just, everybody's just trying to find the content creators that they enjoy and finding where they're at and joining those particular ones. And I think if another platform comes out that that does a lot of like videos, I think that's where you're going to find a lot of the TikTok authors going, or the TikTok, the book talk community. As I said, I know quite a few people that I know went to Tome. Blue Sky has been a huge one. That's where a lot of people went. And I know a lot of people went to Red Note. I have not joined Red Note yet. Some people went to Clapper. So some are going over to YouTube and doing that. And I just don't think I have the energy to do YouTube.
Have you any thoughts about which channels you personally might go for? Or
I've joined Tome because that's pretty much for readers and authors. I've joined Clapper, but I haven't done much over there yet. It's still trying to figure out the platform. And also I've been a little bit busy. I'm a Girl Scout troop leader and a cookie manager for our troop. So we're full swing cookies right now. So doing a whole lot of TikTok videos, or trying to figure out which social media platform right now had to take a little bit of a back burner for a little bit. But I'm looking forward to learning more about Neptune when that comes out. And I'll just kind of be playing around with all of them and seeing which one kind of sticks and which one feels the best. Because the thing that I've heard is the good news is that you don't have to be on every social media platform, but choosing whichever platform works best for you is the one that you should focus your energy on.
Yeah. Do you think looking at sort of the analytics and all that is important in sort of finding the right channel and the right stream for you then?
Yeah, just trying to figure out, where your community is, where the settings or the options that you've got are going to work the best for you.
What advice would you give to authors who are worried about the ban and a bit unsure about the future?
One, find the creators that you like, go follow them on whatever platforms that you have, that they have, or ones that you're interested in exploring, being able to follow them, and having them be able to follow you if that's what you're doing. Also letting your representatives know your feelings on this. Letting our voices be known is also a huge thing, because that's letting them know what TikTok means to people, and letting people know, and letting our representatives know that this is what we're asking of them.
That's some great advice. I'm sure people will find that useful. So thank you so much for your time today. Where can people go to stay updated about you and your work?
Sure. So TikTok for now. We'll see how long. But pretty much all of my social medias are Kari Pohar dash author. So I am on TikTok, Blue Sky. I'm on Clapper, Tome. So, and that Tome is TOME. And eventually, when Neptune comes out, I will be trying that one out too.
Great. Well, you'll have to let us know how you get on with that. I'm sure authors will be interested to know where the future platforms may be and where they may find success. So, well, thanks again so much, Kari. It was really interesting to hear your thoughts about all this, and I'm sure people will value your perspective. So I hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really nice to talk with you.
So that was an interesting chat with Kari. As we're going to do with the other interviews in this podcast, we're going to do a little reflection on some of the things Kari said. one of the things that stood out to me was that Kari mentioned that one of the reasons she was successful on TikTok was that she was able to network with other authors, and she was able to get to know them, and then they were sharing her content and she was sharing theirs, and that was helping her reach new audiences. I thought it was a really interesting and useful piece of advice, sort of about networking.
But it's a great way to market, isn't it? Really, having those connections and being able to get yourself out there in that way.
Yeah, and it's something that you and I think, have found really valuable for ourselves, isn't it?
Especially with rogue readers.
Yeah,
and gaining their connection through there.
All the community that we have has been through networking, hasn't it? Really.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look to the very earliest days of Rogue Animal, back when we were just starting, we used a website called Tapas, didn't we? And we used to write to people on there in the hope that they would get back to us. And
we went through so many, sent
so many people
messages out.
We were lucky not to get banned on there, I think.
I think we did get banned on there for sending.
Oh, we may have got banned. Yeah. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
But through that, we met quite a few people and interviewed quite a few people, and we started to build those links earlier on, and that sort of ethos is sort of carried through when we went onto Facebook and Twitter and all that, and we've grown the community that way, haven't we? Really?
We don't really use TikTok at the minute. However, it's the same principle, practically.
It is, exactly. Whatever social media you're on, I think getting to know the community is essential for indie authors, and that's sort of the reason we're here. That's what we want to do. We want to bring people together. So Kari also talked about some of the challenges of marketing her shorts on other platforms. She's on, even though she's on Facebook and Instagram and all the rest of it, she said that she hasn't had the same success from using shorts on those platforms, even though it's the same thing basically. And that she finds that content that's trending on Facebook tends to be stuff that's already trended on TikTok, so it's a bit behind. So sort of interesting there that, I mean, some people might find that they do shorts better through Facebook. I don't know, but
I think there's more of a community built around TikTok in sense of the shorts, whereas Facebook and Instagram, it's just more about the person scrolling and not really clicking on.
Yeah,
like you don't really click on many of the shorts to follow the person, but on TikTok it's very like the shorts, and then you click on to them to go to the person, and you can get more of a following that way.
Yeah, I agree. And Kari also said about looking at where you're successful and using and focusing on that. And I think, again, that's something that you have to do, isn't it? You end up stretching yourself too thinly otherwise. We always used to think that Twitter was going to be, I feel like everyone has that one platform that they do well on, don't they? And we always thought it was going to be Twitter, and it ended up being Facebook. So, it's not always where you expect it to be.
It wasn't Facebook, like our Facebook page, it hasn't done well, but our group, that's where it's been gaining traction, growing that community, focusing wholly on the people
and the community. Yeah, I think community is such an important thing for authors, as we sort of said before, and you have to find ways to create that and facilitate that community, really, no matter what platform you're on. Kari also mentioned the TikTok ban, and about people, there's no real consensus about which platform authors will go for if TikTok does shut down. So, some people might go to Twitter, or there was a few that she mentioned that I'm not that familiar with, to be honest, that they might join as well. So, there's no answer about if the ban does go ahead where people should go, but I guess again it goes back to that, looking at where you're doing well and where the audience might be.
Yeah, no, it does, doesn't it? Depends on which one blows up first. I think TikTok did go, and
we did find that there was a similar platform, wasn't there, in that sort of came to number one in the
recently. I feel like because of this ban now, even if it isn't set in stone, even if it doesn't happen, it has given people more options other than just TikTok, because people looked at other places now. That door's open a bit more.
Yeah, that's it. We'll go on to the next interview now with Ed Burley. Ed, do you want to start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and your background as a writer?
Yeah. I am a father of 2 plus 1 puppy, living in the southwest of England. Writing came to me rather late. I mean, I didn't start writing until lockdown, really, because obviously being a musician, I was in pre-production for an album. But unfortunately, lockdown, obviously, we couldn't rehearse, we couldn't do anything. So I had all this creative frustration. I was like, what am I going to do? So I thought, let me try and write a book. You know, I've always loved writing. I've been reading books since I could, as tiny kids, always read books. So out of that, fortunately, came my first novel, Blame, which was released in 2022, I think. And then my second novel, Agency, is due out autumn this year. So,
wow, cool. And I guess that's something a lot of people can sort of relate to, is this frustration during lockdown of, not being able to do some of the things we want to do, so we can sit down and get writing. I think that's
yeah, I mean, I was driving my wife insane, by the end of it. So, you got to do, put your energy, go away, put your energy into something. So
Yeah.
I know a lot of my band actually had COVID babies, so it's clear what they were up to, but I had a pen and paper. So far cheaper way to spend time in the long run, I think.
that is true.
So, what are your experiences of advertising on TikTok?
I get incredibly discouraged with it, to be honest, especially from an author, because there's an awful lot of content. I'm not well known. This is still, as far as I'm concerned, this is still the foundations. So I've essentially convinced myself that I'm amassing evidence. I'm showing that I have the drive and motivation to put myself out there. So hopefully in the future, an agent or whatever will look upon that favorably. That's the way I've got around it. So, I don't come away from it completely deflated all the time.
What sort of brought you to TikTok? Because I mean, it's something that I wasn't that aware of until recently, that there's this huge author sort of scene on TikTok. What sort of drew you to that? What made you think
that was it? I mean, my wife's got a book. I can't for the life of me remember the title, and it was like, as seen on TikTok, the phenomenon on TikTok. So I thought, well, there's got to be something in this. So it was, a case of dipping my toe in the water and seeing what it was about, really. And I've just stuck with it. I guess that's the best way to answer it.
What sort of content would you produce for TikTok? What have you things have you sort of played around with?
Well, the first thing was like, you laptop and this is the manuscript, blah 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 blah, this many words, etc etc. Now that obviously didn't go down too well. Then I did a mini series based on my first book, Blame, where I go and visit locations similarly to the protagonist in my book. That got a bit more notice. And then finally I thought, right, I'm going to have to pair writing with something to try and boost this. So I changed the name of it to His Master Writes. And then a lot of the content now is me and my dog Pippin. And having Pippin in there boosts the views by at least 600. So it's about playing with the algorithm. And I found that's working at the minute. I mean, how long that'll last, I don't know. So I suppose one piece of advice would be, think of something anyone could use. Doesn't have to be a dog. It could be a love of coffee shops, or, if you go to the gym, whatever, gym bags and stuff. Just something that will boost that, because you can add those extra tags in and it will eventually bring you more views.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, the idea of
being personal as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these days nothing's sacred, is it? So it's all out there. It's just playing the game, I guess, and learning as you go.
Yeah, it's quite interesting though. You talked about the idea of, in the end, putting something out there that isn't specifically related to books, but linking it to that and bringing in an audience through that. That's a sort of an interesting angle that perhaps some people haven't thought of. So it's
well, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of us, we don't have our celebrity tags, so people aren't going to seek us out. We have to kind of go to the people.
Yeah.
I mean, I was amazed to hear that Frank Lampard has a series of children's books. I was like, really? Blimey, but then again, all these big corporate fiction, they're going where the names are, because obviously it's already, that's a known name. So it's going to bring us in revenue.
Yeah.
As frustrating as it is, it's just the world we live in, and it's about adapting to it, I think.
That's where traditional publishing is at right now, I think, focusing on the big names and the celebrities. So you mentioned to us earlier that you had the sort of challenge of unfavorable algorithms on dealing with unfavorable algorithms on TikTok. Is this something that you've sort of experienced personally when you've been trying to advertise your own work?
Yeah, definitely. And you get 100 million hits on, I don't know, a girl dancing around in a bikini. Well, I don't have the body of Ryan Reynolds. I ain't gonna start doing stuff like that, and that is, again, that's incredibly frustrating. And I think, again, a lot of people can relate to that. So, and then they change all the time, don't they? Like this whole, buy this app, Real Trends app. Look at all the music. Look at everything that's being everyone the things being tagged. Everything's being trending. Well, I haven't got time for that. Unfortunately, I'm not earning enough revenue through my writing. I still have to work. I've still got 2 kids, a wife and a dog to take care of. I have a life, so my time is somewhat restricted, and I haven't got time to be chasing these algorithms. I'd much rather be working on my craft, putting pen to paper.
Yeah, that's it. So most authors are using and are used to creating long form content. Do you think the concise nature of shorts poses a challenge to authors?
Definitely, because you've got to keep, it's got to be new, it's got to be different. I think you actually spend more time creating a series of shorts than you do a long form piece overall. And again, as we just said, time is limited.
Yeah,
and that's frustrating as well. So
it sort of occurs to me, because you mentioned earlier that you were in a band and you were doing that before you started doing all this writing. Had you experienced using platforms like TikTok for the band as well, or has it been a more recent thing?
Yeah. I mean, when we the biggest platform we managed to get via the band was actually Twitter, which really surprised us, to be perfectly honest. But again, that was networking. And that was because obviously you can get hold of a lot of DJs, even if it's on independent radio, through Twitter. So you can get your music out that way. Whereas in the writing world, it's completely different, isn't it? You don't really have. We obviously, all the agents are on there, but all the agents are tied to something, or they're already tied to about 20 authors you've never heard of. So it's almost like the gate's already closed before you get there, which is, again, it's really frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, it's something we've sort of experienced as well, is that you've sort of got to pick your lane in terms of social media and
absolutely.
You just get overloaded otherwise.
Yeah.
So whether it's on TikTok, Facebook, or other platforms, unfavorable algorithms are always a challenge for authors. Do you have any advice to help authors who are trying to stand out against algorithm and post algorithm-friendly content?
Yeah. Again, I guess it's about being unique. I mean, I always liked Instagram because that's the one I'm most prolific on. That's the one I seem to get the most interaction with people with. I don't know what it is about it. I don't know whether it's because there's such a big write-a-gram, but that sort of thing. I'm not really sure. And it's almost like a lot more people are a lot more open on Instagram. It's not, TikTok seems to be such a almost, got a lane. If I went and if I could film myself falling over a ladder, I'd probably get more hits than I would any other way.
Yeah.
Humor's a big thing and that sort of thing. Whereas I think Instagram is it's almost like it's more open-minded, because you can get everyone on there, from politicians to actors to writers to even film directors, I just think it's a more open platform, and it's a lot easier because you don't have to you don't have to be so focused on your short little 10-second video. You can put a picture up there and it's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the shorts aren't just a thing that's unique to TikTok, although I guess that's where it sort of properly originated. You get shorts on Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah,
YouTube,
it's true.
everything.
Like I say, I tend to swerve that on Instagram.
Mm.
TikTok, shorts, Instagram, anything. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah. That's what you need to do, isn't it now?
Yeah, pretty much.
The TikTok ban won't be enforced in the UK. Do you think the ban will have an impact for authors based outside the US?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I have, it's only a few copies mine, but I have a few copies in the hands of readers in America and Canada. So obviously the flow of information, especially now as we're gearing up to my second release, reaching those people. If TikTok goes down, then great. Well, that's one less information stream I've got to use. And the scariest thing is with Trump, all that US political nonsense going on. Well, how long is it now? If we're getting rid of TikTok, how long is it before we're going to start censoring Facebook? I mean, he won't do anything with X because Elon Musk is his best mate, isn't he? Let's be honest. It is gonna limit the flow of information between the two. Yeah. And like I said, I feel really fortunate. I do have readers overseas. It's wonderful. But then again, it's almost this other barrier that I've now got to jump over to still reach them. Because hopefully, if they, I've got positive feedback from my first book. So hopefully, I know a few of them are keen to get the second one. So I'd really like to keep them engaged because that's the nature of the game. And again, they're putting another barrier in my way. So,
and you sort of wonder about the longevity of the platform anyway. If the US market goes, will other countries follow along with that, or will they deem it's useful enough to continue to have, are they gaining enough revenue or whatever from?
Yeah, either that or it's going to be 1984 Thought Police.
Well,
please send this off to our little room, and if we approve your content, we will then post it.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that already, to be honest. But
yeah, it's real. I mean, God knows if Orwell was alive today, goodness knows what he'd think. I mean, it's scary. Really is scary stuff going on.
Definitely, yeah. So what would you say to people who are worried about the TikTok ban? What advice would you give to them?
Rather than focusing, obviously social media is a massive thing, but almost as a morale boost to yourself as much as anything else, look at free media. I mean, when I was doing the main promotion run for Blame, I was really fortunate because I managed to get Blame in Somerset Life magazine, the glossy thing. That was one of their summer reads in that, and I also managed to get it into Weatherspoons magazine.
Oh, wow.
Which is really, really rare. And I mean, Weatherspoons, I was talking to the guy, and he was like, "How does this relate to Weatherspoons?" I was like, "Well, there's a scene that is written in a Weatherspoons. I've just changed the name of the pub." I was like, "Well, that's great because I mean that fills our content half a page in our magazine." So I went to Bristol and we shot photos, and I was interviewed. You know, it's not like a huge spread. It's just this one bit, and I was like, so just offhand, how many people do you reckon read this magazine? And he said, oh, our average readership is about 1 million.
Wow. I mean, I'm not surprised actually.
I know, but
Yeah.
it's like, okay then, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm come away thinking, you know, they're numbers I could only dream of
Yes. Yeah.
online. You know, that's
Yeah.
crazy. So my point is, look outside social media, see what you can get for free, because I didn't have to pay anything for that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Do you think
Again, it's about thinking outside this box.
Yeah.
Which is easier said than done, I know, you know, but sometimes like that it pays off, and they've agreed, and I deliberately wrote a scene in my second book that takes place in another Weatherspoon, so they've agreed that they'll have me back and do a feature on that. So again, that's a possible another 1 million people I'm exposed to via that article. So
out of interest, how did you actually get in touch with the Weatherspoons magazine and
I emailed everyone pretty much in this country, and I was lucky enough to find the right email. Hello, buddy. Excuse me. Lucky enough to find the right email for the editor of Weatherspoons magazine. I think I went into Weatherspoons and looked at the back, and it's like editor. Because I got to the point where I was like, honestly, what have I got to lose? It's an email. I've sent dozens of these out. If it doesn't come back, what have I lost?
Yeah.
You know, if it does come back, well, what have I gained? You know,
Exactly.
quite a bit actually.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd encourage people to do. Think about that as well as the social media platforms.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's great. So will you continue promoting on the platform if the ban does come into effect? If not, which other platforms will you focus on?
Instagram, obviously. Yeah, I probably will, because I've told myself, well, I'm trying to convince myself at this stage in my writing career that I'm just amassing evidence. I mean, I want people to see that I am willing to self-promote, and then hopefully further along the line, someone's willing to invest in me and my writing. If I can do this on my own with little to no, you know, money backing, what could we achieve if I had a bit of money behind it in terms of promotion? That's what I'm personally. That's the road I'm personally driving down.
Regardless of whether you stay on TikTok or anywhere, as you mentioned rightfully before, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of deregulation going on right now. Recently, for example, we've seen that Facebook has removed fact checkers.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I mean, there's a big debate as to what that means for the society at large. But in terms of authors, you know, it's hard enough getting your work out there at the moment with there's so much spam and content out there. How much of a problem do you think this is going to pose for authors, and what do you think people can do to get around it?
It's going to be a pain. Isn't it? You know, we can't sugarcoat it. Again, it's another hurdle we have to jump over. I'd say, you know, present yourself as human, which sounds ridiculously simple, but you know, things like me and my dog. I'm obviously not a robot. I have a dog. You know, stuff like that. I mean, you can do it. I don't have all the. I have no idea how people can do it. But again, it's about trying to find a unique selling point, something that people can relate to. You know, whether that's on your morning commute. You know, if you're stuck in traffic on the M25, for example, just flip it on, 10 seconds. You know, well, here we are, morning commute. In my head currently is, I don't know, a passage that you've written, a passage you want to write, a character you want to base on the bloke in the car in front of you who clearly, for some reasons, is having a really bad day. I don't know, but, you know, anything like that, just to prove that you're not a bot, you are a real person.
Yeah, and I think with the rise of AI, especially at the moment, being human is quite an important message to put out there. And
most definitely.
So, yeah, thanks for your time. Do you have any upcoming projects that you'd like to draw listeners' attention to before we finish?
Yeah, my second book, Agency, like I said, comes out this autumn. And that is essentially, it's a British crime drama because I love The Sopranos. So watched the series 3 times. So I looked at characters like Paulie and Silvio and thought, now what are these blokes going to be like if they're British? You know, Paulie in his tracksuit and that, you know, jeans, hoodie. Okay, then. So they've been doing this a long time. So I'll make them career criminals. And then I'll have so they're you got two. You've got Frank, who's the main bloke, to the captain, and then you've got Rick, who's his capo, and then they put together a team, and they actually rob a care home. It's really, really unique. I think it's a really unique tale because I've worked in care most of my working life, and what people don't understand. There's a big social issue at the minute as well. You know, people don't understand how responsible you are and actually how much money is on the premises. I mean, I shouldn't make this too public because people start robbing care homes, but you know, it's a big thing. So I thought, what I'll do, I'll have these group of career criminal British, all the British career criminals who clearly are past their prime, try and rob a care home. So, and everything that involves with that, the planning of the job, they pull it off, and the aftermath. You know, where that came from, I don't know. They always say write about what you know. So, combination of coming home from work and watching The Sopranos led me to Agency. And like I say, that will hopefully be out in the autumn. All being
That
well.
sounds great, to be honest.
So, yeah.
Any particular platforms that'll be on, or people can pre-order or whatever?
It's too early to tell, but it'll probably be on, you know, the usual Amazon, and then which I'm trying desperately to find a narrator at the minute for my first book, Blame, to get that on Audible and things. But you know, at your base level, professional actor, reader, whatever you want to call them, they want about $6,000. Well, unfortunately, I don't have $6,000 in my back pocket to record a audiobook. So if anyone out there is interested, please feel free to reach out.
There you go, people.
Yeah, to be honest.
Where would they be able to find you at?
I am Instagram, as we've been talking about, TikTok. My handle is at His Master Writes, which is a play on HMV. Again, it's playing the algorithm because it's got writing in there and it's also got the puppy in there. So again, there. Or you can find me on Facebook. Right. But then my name is, I've got my writing handle is Edward Burley, but on Facebook it's just Ed Burley, same person as me. So I'm around, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Out of interest, also, what's your band called, and what sort of music?
Fallen Child. We play rock music, alternative rock music. So it's I suppose if you took the Foo Fighters or Nirvana, basically anything Dave Grohl's done, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and you kind of slotted them together, that's what we are. Essentially, that's the quickest way I can paraphrase it. And we're on all the streaming platforms because we were really lucky enough to get a distribution deal in 2019. No, it can't have been 2016. So we're on Spotify and Amazon Music, and so that's out there as well.
Awesome. Well,
we got a couple of videos on YouTube. So, but at the minute, obviously, I am. Well, we've got band members raising kids, and we've got I'm knee deep in writing, so we're kind of on infinite hiatus at the minute. But hopefully, we will come together and record the second record. I don't know, 2028. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for your time, Ed. It's been great talking
thank
to you.
Yeah, pleasure.
And we hope to speak to you again soon.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Okay, well, that was a really interesting conversation with Ed, I thought.
It's a great conversation.
One of the most interesting things I thought that Ed said was about this idea of having a human element in your TikTok creation. I guess the main topic was about the ban, but we wanted to sort of also reflect on how you can succeed on platforms like TikTok. And I thought this idea that having a personal connection and thinking outside the box was being such a huge thing as well. Like
all like that's how you got to do it now. You got to have a personal connection. So that's the main reason people follow you and buy stuff from you. It's having that personal touch, personal connection to them.
Because the thing is, when you think about putting some content on TikTok to do with your book, first thing you think of is let's put a page up or let's put something to do with the book up. But actually, that's not what's going to draw people in. You got to think of other things. And if you've got a dog or something like, I mean, it's no secret how huge animal content is online.
Or even not just that, even it could be vlogs to do with how your writing process goes, the struggles you have during.
It has to be something that draws people in.
It got to be personal. It got to be something to do with you as a person.
Yeah,
that's what sells it.
So it was good to have someone on who was from the UK in the series of interviews we're doing, because even though as far as we know, TikTok isn't going to be shut down here, it's still going to be a big impact to people who advertise there. And to hear what Ed had to say about all that was quite interesting. He, as far as I can tell, he doesn't view TikTok as his sort of main platform anyway. He was saying about Instagram being the one that he really likes to focus on. But it will be interesting to know whether most people decide to stick around or whether they think it's worth it. I guess it depends ultimately where your main audience lies, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? But I reckon it's short. See, it isn't just TikTok. You can do YouTube and Instagram with it, but short form content is where marketing is at. Really, it's one of the best forms now. It's one of the most engaging forms. So I think whether he focuses on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram, he'll probably still put the short form content out there.
I think that's a very good point, actually. Regardless of what happens to TikTok, it's not the end of short form content. And in fact, we've already seen a similar app from China which has done really well in the wake of TikTok potentially being shut down. So shorts are gonna live on, I think, regardless of whether you like them or not. People's attention span is not as long as it used to be.
Not good as it used to be.
No, so
I don't think in our era, us growing up, it wasn't great then.
No, it wasn't.
Stuff like playing video games and stuff.
It just gets worse and worse. But it's an important skill, because I think regardless of whether you're doing a short or whether you're pitching to an agent, that first sentence is crucial. First, how you sell yourself in that first line. So in a way, the short is the same. You've got to sell yourself in that very limited amount of time.
You're selling yourself in the first 5 seconds.
Yeah. So if you can master that, then you can probably actually approach agents better and market your book better in other ways as well. So, it is a useful skill, I guess. So I think that's that. Is there anything else you want to reflect on about that? Or
pretty much concludes that interview.
Yeah. So we'll go on to the next interview, which is with Leslie Ann Lee, which is an author from the United States, talking about her experiences with TikTok. Leslie, thanks so much for joining us. Perhaps you could start off by telling us a little about yourself and your background.
Yeah, so I'm, as you mentioned, I'm an author. I'm currently working on a fantasy series that will be a total of 4 books. I'm working on the 3rd one right now. Prior to doing fantasy, fantasy was kind of an unexpected detour. Normally I write historical fiction, but I decided to be gutsy and follow a friend up on a dare that he issued to write fantasy. And so I've kind of done everything. I've done historical fiction, nonfiction. I did a children's book, and now I'm doing fantasy. And that's me in a nutshell, is a writer who spends most of her time in her closet.
It's great that you've done all these different genres, though. I think that's such a good way of sort of testing yourself as a writer, isn't it, and growing your skills?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging, and you kind of just have to go where your mind takes you, or if you're issued a dare, and then you have to accept it, because to not, you're just a pansy. So
fair enough. Okay, I'll hand over to Joe for the next few questions then.
So, do you have any upcoming projects you'd like to draw listeners' attention to?
Yeah, thank you so much. So, as I mentioned, I'm currently working on a series that's entitled Legends of the Vale. I've done the first 2 books. They've been published, and I'm currently working on the 3rd. That one is entitled The Ashwalker. And then at some point within the next few years, the 4th and final installment will be out. And that one's entitled Firebrand. That's the writing, or I guess the novel side of my work. And then I'm also currently working on the screenplay adaptation for the 3rd book, having already done a screenplay for the first 2 of the books.
Oh, yeah, that's great. So, what are your experiences of advertising on TikTok?
So I kind of came to TikTok after everyone else, which is what I tend to do on social media. Like a new platform will become the craze, and everybody will be on it, and I'll still be, over on Facebook or whatever. But I got on TikTok because I liked the format, and I had to kind of like realize this was where everybody was. Everybody is on TikTok, and you've got your influencers, and so I'll move over to TikTok. And so I use the TikTok platform solely to promote the book, or the books, my writing experience, as opposed to, like on Instagram or Facebook, I might also like talk about my personal life and, here, look at my cup of coffee that I just bought or whatever. But TikTok is solely for shameless self-promotion.
Yeah. I think like me and Michael have that same thing where we like go to something a bit too late and then like but
yeah, well, I mean, you get comfortable in what and so Facebook, I ended up on, I'm going to date myself, but Facebook I ended up on because like MySpace just disappeared, so you didn't, and the only way you could communicate was on Facebook. That's how I ended up there. But I was late to Instagram. I'm like, I don't want, why would I post here? I've got Facebook. And then TikTok, the same thing. Like, why do I need to move? I'm comfortable.
With so many authors on the platform, and standing out can be a challenge. And do you have any tips for creating algorithm-friendly content?
Yeah, no, I think what I've learned personally is you can't stop posting if you only have like 5 views or whatever. You have to be consistent, and you have to keep going. I know when I first started, I was getting nothing. And I was just like, well, see, I'm proving my own point. Why do I need to be here when nobody's looking at my stuff? Like, there's no point making all this really fancy post and working on it for nobody to view it. It's a waste of my time. But I kept going, and I stayed consistent, or more consistent. I'm not always consistent. And I just keep putting stuff out there, and you never know when and if you'll become viral. You never know who's going to see it. It doesn't take 1 million people. It only takes that one person, to like blow you up. So you have to be consistent, and you have to just keep going and not look at numbers.
Yeah, definitely. Like when you like if you did blow up, people would have a full catalog of videos to look through then,
Yeah,
and would know more, and it just bulks your portfolio up a lot.
yeah,
So
exactly.
shorts are also on Facebook and Instagram and the other mainstream platforms. And do you think they're a useful medium for authors?
Yeah, I think so. In the sense, like I have my reading audience is very diverse. I have kids that are reading my stuff. I have really like not like I have older people that are reading it, and because I feel from my experience, TikTok is a younger person's platform. Um, so I try to consistently post across all social media because the lady who's in her 60s, 70s, 80s on Facebook isn't going to see what I'm posting on TikTok. Um, and so yeah, it's good to stay consistent across all platforms because again, you don't know who's going to see your stuff and how they're going to affect you. If anything, what I sometimes do is I may post something on TikTok that's geared towards maybe a slightly younger audience, maybe focusing on like the romantic aspect of a story that I'm doing or something that's going to draw a reader in, and then try to keep it a little more tame for my older audiences, like on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, that's like it's a great idea. It's a great thing to do because you're targeting your audience with that. Um, so most authors are used to creating long form content. Do you think the concise nature of shorts poses a challenge?
Yes. Um, I as so at my core, I'm a book writer. I'm long-winded. I love giving a good visual description. Um, and so when you take that kind of style and you want to compact it down into 5, maybe 10 seconds at the most, that's a huge, huge challenge. But it's good. It's good for a writer to have to kind of learn to hone in on what they're really trying to say. I mean, yes, give a beautiful visual description, but at its core, what's your message? What are you trying to get across to your reader? And I've in writing screenplays, like that's been an issue. You as a novel writer, you give the reader as much information as possible. As a screenwriter, you're taking all your information out and leaving it up to the director or the producer or even the actor to interpret what they want to say with your words. And so yeah, making really short posts is really challenging. I usually try to make the image very visually impactful and appealing, and then put a really tiny little blurb in there and then just hashtag it up. And that's been good for me because I've had to really okay, so what's the message of this image? What's the message that I want to say? What am I trying to get across? Ready, set, go.
Yeah, like that's it. Like you got to make it visually interesting as well, don't you? So
Yeah,
I'm going to hand it over to Michael now.
you got it. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Joe.
You.
So, do you think there's something in this idea of having to do when you're making a short? Obviously, when you promote yourself as an author, you have to get the core message out in a very concise way. And do you think that being able to do something like shorts helps with the wider marketing of books, and in fact, maybe writing books and getting concise stories, within the narrative?
Yeah, definitely. I think nowadays, it's not about walking into a bookstore and seeing a really appealing book display or end cap. The whole marketing strategy is social media. And so how do you up your game to compete with everybody out there? And how do you draw them in just like a split second? Like, because if they, I mean, you can look at your analytics, and most people will stop, even if it's a 5-second short, they'll stop watching 2 or 3 seconds in if they're not interested. You know, they're just because they're scrolling. That's what they're doing. And so how do you make that impact, and how do you, because it's a commercial for yourself, and it's a short, really short commercial. So you've got to really figure it out. And even within like the niche of like a TikTok or a YouTube short, there's so much competition, you know, you're learning how to do marketing strategy while you're learning how to, you know, self-promote yourself. Yeah, it's really challenging.
You mentioned the idea there of learning as you're going along and adapting, and also analytics and the data. Do you think it's really important to keep an eye on that, you know, on the numbers and how different pieces of content are doing?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, and you know, unless you're taking like a college course or a university course on marketing strategy, everybody is self-teaching themselves, you know. And so you want to look at the analytics, you want to look at what gets more likes and when. It's not just like what you are posting, it's also when you're posting. I one of the highest viewed posts I ever did on TikTok, I did New Year's Eve, and it made sense because everybody's just hanging out at parties or at home or whatever. Nobody's working. And so that was a smart move. It wasn't intentional. I didn't mean for it to like blow up, but it did. And so, yeah, you've really got to be mindful of what you're doing, when you're doing it, and how you're doing it. Or you're just going to kind of like coast along and never really go anywhere.
I think to a lot of authors, when they hear the words like analytics and marketing and things like that, they get a bit sort of scared because they're writers, they're not business people.
Exactly. Yes.
Was that a struggle for you when you started marketing your own book?
Yeah.
Did it come naturally, or?
No, I mean, I kind of wanted to, when I first started writing, and really wanting to like kind of like make myself as a writer, like that's who I was and that's how I wanted to be defined. I don't know why I thought this, but I kind of just envisioned the world where I could like, you know, write the last word on the last page, send it off to somebody to just magically like put it together and make me famous. And I never really, like, I never thought I'd be like a J.K. Rowling or a Stephen King or, you know, anybody with bazillions of dollars and, you know, be worldwide famous. But I wanted something. And so I kind of just like sat back and waited for everything to like manifest, and it never did. And so then I really had to start looking at, oh, well, obviously I need to get out and I need to advocate for myself, which is hard because my nature is not one to like go out into the world and be like, hey, you know, look at me. That's not my personality. And so like to have to learn how to be aggressive, to promote the stuff that I've done has been a real challenge. And it's only really within the last couple of years that I've learned and grown both as a person and a writer to really kind of like be ballsy in that sense and be like, all right, like, let's talk and like, let's negotiate. And I had to negotiate a deal with Barnes and Noble a couple of weeks ago. And we were talking like royalty and percentages and all these things. And like, I was exhausted when I was done because I had to self-advocate, and it was like, I don't want to, you know, I want somebody else to do that for me. But I mean, it's a good life lesson. No one's going to like step up and like take care of you. So you got to do it yourself.
Absolutely. I think that is a challenge that a lot of authors can relate to be honest.
Yeah. For sure.
So with this potential TikTok ban, we don't obviously know whether it will go ahead. There's been delayed for 75 days or something like that.
Yeah.
What has sort of been the reaction within the community? What have you noticed?
I think like leading up to the ban, people were increasing, especially like in like kind of the community I float around in, we were posting more. I don't know if it was because we were just like trying to get as much out there, and then because we were afraid that like everything was just going to go dark and we were going to go back to the Stone Age and nobody was going to read our stuff. Or if it was kind of like more of a like a rebellion, like, how dare you like try to take away my life work and everything I'm doing for myself. And but yeah, there was an increase like Fridays, like the 2 days before, and then we all just kind of like sat in silence, you know. And I had a few friends that I could like text that were on TikTok, and we're like, so what do we do now? Like, how do we, okay, cool. And then it came back, and I was sitting in church when I got the notification, and I'm like, okay, well, that was 48 hours of like panic that I didn't need to put myself through. But creatives, we're also very highly emotional and like exaggerate what we're thinking and feeling like tenfold. So yeah, and I think now we're all just kind of like, doing the same thing. Like, let's get as much out there as we possibly can. Let's build a good fan base. Let's put our other socials out there so people know how to follow us if the ban does happen. And make sure we kind of have like a plan B, because in today's current environment, you just don't know what's going to go on.
Did you think it was useful to have that community around you when things were so uncertain? And I guess it remains uncertain.
Yeah, most definitely. I know I have a lot of people that are on like Book Talk and like those TikTok channels, and it was like, okay, we were messaging back and forth like, okay, so I need this specific person to be posting, and I need to be able to see them. Like, I have a friend who's not necessarily a writer, but she's a reader. She reads everything. And so she's like, I need my book talk. Like, I need my fix. Like, I need to be able to have that kind of like interaction with not only the people that are reading what I'm reading, but also the people that are creating the content that I'm reading, and I think that's been something that's been kind of overlooked. Is I get the rationale of the ban. I don't agree with it, and I don't know that that's the best solution. But I think what's being overlooked is, for a lot of people, it's not only their livelihood, but it's also their way of communicating. And to shut that off, it kind of almost takes people back to like a COVID time where you were shut off from your community, and your way of engaging and interacting with people. And people don't like that. I'm so sorry. Yeah. I'm getting all political right now.
No, that's fine. No, it's really interesting to hear those thoughts. How important do you think the idea of having that community and that network is for an independent author in general?
Oh, it's huge. I love getting messages from somebody who is on the other side of the world that I will never meet in a million years. And it doesn't even have to be anything like deep and philosophical. It can be like, I liked your post. Like, I really liked the way that the person looked, or the character seems intriguing, or, the best are, I've gotten a couple, not necessarily on TikTok, but on Facebook, where I've seen a post about somebody who's trying to find a fantasy novel for their teenager to read, and I try to make my stuff readable for all ages. Like, I don't want a 13-year-old to pick up my book and think it's like super cool and there's like some sort of racy sex scene in it, and then their mom's enraged at me and tries to sue me or something. And so I've seen a couple of these posts where they're looking, and I'm like, hey, I'm not trying to self-promote. I genuinely just want to like give you a suggestion. I'd be happy to send you a copy. And they get the book and they read it and they respond with, thank you so much. Like, I appreciate you taking the time to to be interested in my life and the needs of my child, and thank you for sending the book because that cost you money, and whatever. And I love engaging with people like that. And I think that you need something like TikTok in today's day and age where everything is literally run by social media and technology. You need those platforms because that's how people engage. It really is. You're not writing letters anymore or getting on the phone, you're engaging on social media.
Absolutely. So what channels do you think you will focus your energy on if the band does go ahead?
Probably I will go back to Facebook and Instagram. I was trying, before I really focused on TikTok, I was trying to do YouTube shorts and get in like on that. But then like in my head it's TikTok and YouTube shorts are very synonymous. So then I focused on TikTok. So I might try to do a little bit more of YouTube shorts, but I have a fan base on Instagram and Facebook. And so if it goes away, then I guess I'm just going back to where I came from.
At least you have the backup channel then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
What would you say to authors who maybe don't have a backup and are a bit worried about the potential ban?
Start getting your stuff out there. I think a lot of people think that it has to be this genius post. Like it has to be just so innovative and cool, and people are gonna only gravitate towards like awesomeness. And yes, that's totally valid and very relative, but no one's going to see you unless you're consistently posting. So for every really impressive post that I might have, I will also probably have about a dozen that aren't that cool, but it keeps me in the game. It keeps my algorithm going, and it might only garner 1 or 2 followers, but then by the time I get to like the super cool post, I've got 1 or 2 new followers, and in that, write about you. Like it doesn't always have to be like your character or like my book's coming out in 3 months and here's a picture of the cover. I try to post about where I'm writing. I try to post about what I this last week I did like Leslie's writing playlist and the music that I listen to when I'm writing, and why. And yeah, it doesn't have to be super high-end stylized stuff. Just keep writing, build a fan base now. Be overly aggressive, because the reality is most of these people you're never going to meet, so they're not going to like take it personally if you're in their face. And just get ready, and like with all the preparation, the band's not going to happen, and then we're all just going to laugh about it, hopefully.
Exactly. But it is always better to be prepared, isn't it? So
Exactly, absolutely.
do you plan your content ahead of time, or do you just sort of do it on the fly?
That's a good question. So yes and no. The really like in depth, like I have to spend time making a post. Yes, I will kind of plan that ahead, and I will be very intentional on when I post it, based off of like what the best times to post on whatever platform is. But then like the other things that I just kind of post willy-nilly to like keep people engaged, I don't really think them through. I mean, like last night I saw something on, I think, Instagram, and it was just this poem that somebody had written, but it perfectly described kind of the underlying message of the fantasy series of Legends of the Veil. And so I posted it, and I'm the guys, like, if you ever wonder what the message is, here you go in poem form. And I did that like an hour or so ago. So it's when it's intentional, like when the third book is closer to being done, and I'm starting to really hit the ground running with like, okay, it's coming out on this day, it'll be available here, and here, then that will be like very premeditated, very planned. How do I make this look good? I'll have a book trailer at some point for that. That post will be very intentional. How do I post this so the most people can see it? But then, yeah, a lot of the stuff, it's like, oh, this is a really good idea. Let me make something and post it, type of thing.
I think with big events like book launches, you sort of have to plan ahead, don't you, to make the most of that launch date.
Yeah, yeah. And even in the idea of like, okay, so when do I publish? I've tried for the fantasy series. One of the main kind of species, I guess, in the series are vampires, and so I have published the first 2 at the beginning of October for the last 2 years, and that's very intentional because of like the season. And then that gives people enough time to order the book as a Christmas present. So there's always intention.
Fantastic. So thanks so much for your time, Leslie. It's been really interesting talking to you.
Thank you.
Where can people go to stay updated on your work?
So I have a website. It's www.myname, so Leslie Ann with an E, Lee.com. And then my TikTok handle is at Greyhaven Bound. So think like Lord of the Rings and the Grey Havens. And then my Instagram is at Lepie21. It's LEPIE 21.
Brilliant. I will be sure to put links to all that in the description of the podcast as well. So
thanks.
So yeah, thanks again, and we hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Joe, another really interesting conversation with a fantastic indie author. Did you have any particular thoughts from that discussion?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting what she was saying about that, like targeting the audience, having different types of like content really for different audiences on different platforms. Ages.
That ability to adapt how you present your work to various groups of people. You know, you might be very different kinds of people who read your book, but they might not necessarily be interested in the same kinds of content. So you got to try and find ways to reach them, haven't you?
Yeah, you do. And I think it goes in that it's one of the most essential things when it comes to marketing is it's focusing on age and who your audience are, which I feel sometimes a lot of people forget that part.
Yeah, they do. That's something we talked about as well, is that this idea of, because I was saying to Leslie that the idea of when people talk about analytics and words like that to authors, they sort of get a bit like scared, because most people, they don't know about marketing or any of that. They just come straight into it as a writer. But looking at that information and that data is such an important part, I think, especially today, where so much of how you get around algorithms is to do with looking at data and using data to your advantage, isn't it? So
yeah, but also I feel like you can get very caught up in that, and it's important to not get caught up in it. It's just create good content that people will like watching.
That's
I think
true.
that's essentially it.
You don't want to be staring at the stat screen all the time. No, not every piece of content is going to do as well as you're going to have some. I think she mentioned that with you as well, didn't she? That certain pieces of content, they're not always going to be do as well, but it doesn't mean they're not as valid. They're useful and
and you also find what people like through doing that. You find what works. What works for your audience.
Absolutely. And on the potential ban, Leslie said what was quite a similar message to what we heard with Kari, which was that people were a bit sort of unsure because there's no consensus. People don't really have a set plan, but lots of people are sort of going their own ways and finding their own platforms. And I think the central idea is just know which channels work for you and make sure you have some sort of backup. The ban might not go ahead, of course. We don't know now, but make sure you've got a plan.
And even if it doesn't go ahead, just have a look at different avenues and where you can promote your work through different platforms.
So that was great. Again, thanks, thanks, Leslie, for talking to us. We'll move on now to a section that we recorded before Christmas. We were originally going to do a full podcast about this, but this TikTok thing came up and we thought we have to do this, but we still wanted to use this content that we recorded before Christmas, which was all about sales. So we had a few authors, a couple of authors send us interviews about how recent experiences with sales. One of them was Kari, who you've already heard. So we'll jump into the first of those now.
Tell us a little about yourself and the book featured in the sale. I'm Carrie Pohar, and I wrote Chateau Merlot. It's a vampire-owned apartment building where she houses her humans like a wine cellar. It's paranormal fiction with low romance. Some themes that you can find there are found family, rags to riches, and cinnamon roll main character vibes. Is this your first experience running a sale? If not, have previous sales informed your approach to this one? I've run sales on my ebook several times over the past 2 years. I once did a sale with Hello Books, and I got several hundred copies of my ebook downloaded because of that promotion. What I've done for the past 2 years has been to set my ebook for free for several days in October, pretty close to Halloween. People frequently request spooky book suggestions that time of year, and so via social media, I promote the free ebook. While this year I did not get the number of purchased ebooks, my KDP page reads increased this year. What lessons have you learned from your sale? Would you do anything differently next time? With the imminent banning of TikTok, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next year. My Facebook and Instagram have performed poorly, where my TikTok account has over 2,000 followers. If no other short video platforms have emerged in the next 6 to 8 months, I will probably look at doing a promotion with Hello Books again. The importance of getting my book into the hands of readers cannot be understated. What advice would you give others thinking of running a seasonal sale? I'd say find the best option for you, regardless of paid or unpaid. Find other authors that you can promote their work and vice versa. The good thing about readers is that they tend to read more than one type of book and more than one author. Other authors are not competition. Also, don't compare yourself to other authors. Their success and your success are not a race. We've been asking authors about their New Year's writing resolutions. Have you set yourself any writing goals for the next year? My writing goal for 2025 is to finally finish the sequel to Chateau Merlot. I'm on the 3rd complete rewrite, but this version gives me the most hope that it'll be the one to keep. I'm hopeful that I'll be able to publish it in 2025.
Hey guys, and thanks for having me on the Rogue Animals podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Matty Baggins, and I'm a debut paranormal romantasy author out of Utah. My debut novel, St. Luna's Curse, is the first novel in the Jason McCrae's Psychic for Hire series. A little bit about the novel. Jason is a psychic who, with his best friend, who happens to be a ghost, are hired by a were-leopard to figure out the secret behind a curse plaguing the local lycanthrope group. On top of having to fight off curses and a race against time before all the group's members are killed off, Jason ends up finding love in places he didn't expect. It's got a little bit of everything from fated mates, friends to lovers, monster and shifter romance. It's multi point of view. It's got harem romance and even some slight cannibalism. Book 2 in the series is currently out with beta readers, so you should expect the follow-up in the series next spring. I'm looking at a late March or April release for Call of Death, where Jason, Addie, Mickey, and Haley's story continues, and they face off against someone from Addie's dark past, and possibly add more to their growing harem. When asked, is this your first experience running a sale? It is. This was me just kind of ripping the Band-Aid off to get myself started, and it's been a very mixed bag of results. I think the biggest lesson I learned from the sale is that I really need to work on marketing. Out of everything, I struggle with that the most, since I'm naturally a nervous and anxious person, so I never really know how to interact with people or put myself out there. It's definitely something I need to work on for the next round of sales, especially once I find my niche and target audience. I'll be the first to admit I'm in sort of a weird spot that straddles the line between romance and quote-unquote romance for men, or harem lit. That said, I think my other downfall might have been from focusing more on the physical print rather than the ebook, because I'm really super proud of how the physical novel looks in person. I went with black pages and white text, and it's got the full white on black look throughout the novel, and it's just super pretty, and I love it. But I ended up really and truly neglecting the ebook version of my novel, and I probably shouldn't have. What advice would you give to others thinking of running a seasonal sale? Market, market, market. If you're someone like me, you've got to find a way to overcome that anxiety and fear of putting yourself out there and just bite the bullet and promote as much as you possibly can to find the right audience. If you feel like you haven't shared your book sale enough, or too much rather, keep posting and promoting, because you probably haven't promoted enough. And that was what I found with myself. And my New Year writing resolutions. I have a ton of goals for myself, and I'm probably biting off more than I can chew, but it is what it is. Write more, being first and foremost, definitely. I'm going to get beta reader results back in February for Call of Death. So while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to start working on a couple standalone ideas that I've got. One of which is about a guy falling for his sleep paralysis demon, which will be darker than the Jason McRae series. Tone-wise, I'm kind of leaning towards something like Haunting Adeline, but gender-swapped and actual hauntings going on. Another idea that I've got floating around is about a guy getting swooned over by a group of women serial killers. Tone also pretty dark. I'm kind of thinking something along the lines of the Saw series and a movie called The Final Exam. And then outside of that, once I get the final draft of Call of Death done and sent off for publishing, I'm going to work on book 3 of the Jason McCraig series. I currently have it plotted, but once I get beta results back, I'm going to revisit the outline, kind of tweak some stuff, and then get to work on the first drafts of Lilith's Lounge. All in all, I'm really hopeful for 2025. And I really, I can see myself by this time next year having at least 3, maybe 4 published novels under my belt. Anyway, thanks for having me. Seluna's Curse is out now, available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and more. And we'll see you guys next time.
So at this point in the podcast, we review a book that has been sent to us by an indie author. As with the previous podcast, I'm going to focus on one particular book, and then we're going to give some shout outs to some of the stories that have been sent to us. So this week's book is called Stellar Heir by Scott Killian. Now, as you will know, if you've seen this podcast before, I talk about three things that I enjoyed from the first chapter, and I'll let you make your own choices about whether you'd want to go on to buy the book or not. You can find links for all the stories mentioned here in the description. So to begin, I'm just going to read a quick description of the book that has been sent to us. He hadn't planned on picking up a strange alien artifact. Once it was clasped around his wrist, Jael was granted extraordinary abilities. His senses were heightened, his reflexes faster, and he could now regenerate from damage that would spell the end for others. Abilities that would have been coveted even during his days as a warrior monk. Now, working as a scavenger, these powers were a boon, especially when forces from every corner of the stars wanted Jael's artifact for themselves and would stop at nothing to get it. What initially appears as an advantage swiftly transforms into a weighty charge, yet it's a charge Jael accepts without hesitation, understanding the catastrophic potential should the relic fall into the wrong hands. Prodded onward by visions of an ancient ally and a mysterious enemy, Jael became a pivotal piece in a vast interstellar play of power and dominion in a galaxy on the brink of war. So the first thing that stood out to me about this chapter was that it had really strong world building that sets the scene from the very start. The story opens in the midst of a battlefield over the planet Miura. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. We meet two scavengers called Jael and Goni, salvaging ships that had been left behind after the battle. During this section, we learn about star lanes, cosmic highways used by ships to traverse great distances. We learn about a race called the Morton, who created a bioweapon that backfired and infected only their own people, and they had to replace body parts with cybernetics to overcome the virus. All this gives a sense of a wider universe, which I find intriguing and want to learn more. The point the story really began to grab my attention was when Jael and Goni break into an abandoned ship operated by a group called the Excavationist Union. We learned that the Morton had attempted to break in. The chapter does a good job of building suspense about what's held on the ship. It ends in a dramatic way, which only adds to this intrigue. Lastly, I enjoyed the interactions between Jael and Goni. You get a sense that they've been through a lot together. I'm interested to see how their friendship develops and is impacted by the discovery. So the first book I'm giving a shout out to this week is called Please Wait by Evan Rook. In the chaotic tangle of modern life, where every moment is a struggle to disconnect and every interaction feels like a performance, Please Wait is a collection that cuts straight to the bone. With a voice as unflinching as it is darkly humorous, Evan Rook takes us through the often absurd landscapes of dating apps, remote work nightmares, existential hangovers, and the quiet desperation of a sleepless night. These stories capture the moments most of us try to ignore, the mundane frustrations, the bitter ironies, the quiet yearning for something more than the digital noise and the fluorescent lit routines. The second book is Japan Guide from Renting to Rice Cooking. It's a guidebook and the first in a planned series of 7. It's written by Isabel Grennan. More than a guidebook, an engaging and informative introduction to the quotidian realities of life in Japan. Punctuated by photos inside and outside ordinary Japanese homes, humorous anecdotes, and revealing statistics. A worthy read for the new expat and the Japan curious alike. The next book is by Brad Ricks, and it's called To Hell with Hallmark. Welcome to Hallmark, Vermont, the setting for every cliched Christmas dream. Idyllic and picturesque, it's where Christmas magic begins. Here, a lonely librarian bumps into the man of her dreams and is swept away into a whirlwind romance. A big city girl runs into her high school sweetheart and rekindles a forgotten spark. A secret prince escapes the pressures of royalty and finds his true love. Except this year, something sinister has infected Hallmark's Christmas magic, turning Christmas morning dreams into Christmas Eve nightmares. The next book is called Outbound, Islands in the Void by Richard Anderson. It begins in the year 2248 as Earth emerges from the worst effects of climate disruption. Through dramatic events and complicated relationships on Earth and in space, the question of human survival is asked, answered, and asked again. In these pages, you will peek over the shoulders of engineers and scientists as they construct our future. The interweaving storylines and spine-tingling adventures illustrate the dangers and challenges of building and living on the moon, on Mars, or in space islands. How might people thrive in places hostile to life? Next, we have The Devil's Den, a Phoenix thriller by D.E. Nelson. Following a tragedy in her hometown, Phoenix Gerard decides to start fresh in New York. Despite the fact that there is a serial killer running rampant in the city, the move comes with little to no challenges. That is until her beloved roommate goes missing. The only question that remains is, will Phoenix lose herself in search for revenge, or will she lose her life? The outcome is impossible to predetermine when one plays a game of cat and mouse with a psychopath. Then again, Phoenix isn't exactly the epitome of sanity. So I hope you'll check out some of those books if they sounded appealing to you. Right, so another great podcast. Thanks so much, everyone who's listened in. And thank you to everyone who joined us. We've had some really good conversations this week,
No,
haven't
it's
we?
been great, hasn't it?
We really wanted to do the TikTok thing because it seemed like such a relevant. I think, to be honest, we've been a bit late, but
been a bit late, but that's us.
In future, we'll try to be more on the ball. Now, this is technically it's February now. This is the January podcast, so we've got to try and get another one out this month, really, ideally. But we'll see. Hopefully, we can do that.
We'll see. Yeah.
But thanks so much for everyone for listening, for joining us, speaking to us. Quick reminder of the prompts that we set at the start of the podcast that people can send us stories from that. So it was the light faded as I disappeared beneath the water. So it should start with that line. So see what you can do with that. But other than that, thank you so much for watching again, listening and watching, depending on where you are. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.